I was folding the baby blanket I crocheted from soft rose yarn when she said it. Didn't even look up from her phone. Just laughed and said, "Old ladies don't belong at baby showers." My son blinked, like he might say something. But he didn't. I pressed the blanket into the drawer, closed it slowly, looked out the window and saw my roses blooming without help. Funny. That's fine. She can have hers. I'll have mine. And not a single one of them will be invited. The house was quiet. Not lonely. Just quiet in a way that wraps around your bones like a shawl. I had my routines. Early coffee with honey, 2 sugars. A quick prayer over the sink. Sunlight through the lace curtains. Same one since '87. Mondays were for sweeping the porch. Tuesdays the market. Wednesdays I called my son. Or, I used to. He'd answer back then. Sometimes from the car, sometimes with her laughing softly in the background. I never stayed on long. Didn't want to be a burden. He once told me, "Mom, you always know when to let go." And I wore that sentence like a pin on my chest. Like a badge. I had a small room in the back, where I kept my sewing machine. Old thing, with a stubborn foot pedal and a lamp that flickered sometimes. That's where I started her baby quilt. Cream cotton. Pink stitching. Tiny flowers along the edges. I'd work a little each morning. And sometimes in the late hours of the night. When my bones wouldn't sleep. Each square was made with a memory in mind. The peach gingham was from my own apron. The lace was from my wedding handkerchief. And one soft square, pale yellow, came from the hospital gown I wore the night I gave birth to her husband. I wondered if she'd recognize any of it. I planned a quiet shower, just tea and lemon cake. Finger sandwiches. Light jazz in the background. I even found little floral teacups at the thrift store, mismatched but charming. I thought she might like that. She once told me, during her engagement, "I've never had a mother figure before. This means so much." She cried when I gave her my pearl earrings. Said, "I'll wear them down the aisle." She never did. But I figured she forgot. We all forget things when we're young. That same week, I found the baby rattle. Tucked deep in a keepsake box. Still in its original wrapping. It was the one I bought in 1986. Back when I was pregnant with what would have been our second child. A girl. We lost her in August. Buried the dream in a rose bush out back. But I never gave the rattle away. I told myself, one day, when there's a granddaughter. And here she was, growing inside someone who used to call me her safe place. I pressed a hand to my belly, even now, empty and soft. Some feelings don't leave just because the years do. I still felt like a mother, even when no one called me one anymore. The house stayed warm, soft, filled with the scent of chamomile and cinnamon polish. I cleaned out the guest room, just in case she ever needed to rest. Put lavender in the drawer. Fresh towels folded into 3s. There was no bitterness. Not yet. Only hope. And the kind of patience that only comes from years of waiting. I remember walking past the nursery section in the department store. How I lingered over the mobiles. One had little hand-stitched clouds. I imagined her baby reaching up to touch them. I almost bought it, but decided to make one instead. I wasn't trying to prove anything. I just wanted to give quietly. That's what mothers do when they no longer have a title. They give without expecting to be thanked. Or seen. At night, I would sit on the porch and hum lullabies. The same ones I sang to my son when his legs were still stubby. And his eyes full of sky. He used to curl up in my lap and say, "Tell me a story where I'm the hero." And I always did. Every single time. Now he was someone's husband. Soon to be someone's father. And I thought, maybe just maybe, he'd remember how it felt to be held without question. And offer that memory back to me. But weeks passed. No updates. No visit. No questions about the shower. Still I waited. Still I prepared. I wrapped the baby quilt in brown paper and tied it with lace. Placed the rattle on top. Wrote a little card. To the little one who already has my heart. Love, Grandma. And I placed it gently in my hope chest. I was never truly lonely. Just quietly replaced. It came on a Thursday. Gray sky, soup on the stove, radio humming something old. I wasn't expecting it. Wasn't looking for anything. Just checking email. Coupons mostly. Spam. And one message from Ruth. Thought you'd seen this already. Strange not to include you. There it was. A forwarded invitation. Digital, floral, pastel pink with gold script. Welcome baby Everly. A modern baby brunch. Below that, the details. Location. A rooftop cafe downtown. Date. Next weekend. Host Emily. I blinked. Read it again. Then again. Scrolled to the bottom. Under the RSVP. In pale gray text that almost disappeared into the background. Please note. No children or seniors. Intimate vibe only 2 hearts. No children. No seniors. Like we were distractions. Like we were noise. I didn't cry. Didn't shout. Didn't even lean back. Just stared. Stared like I was trying to see myself inside that screen. But there was no reflection. Only a quiet stillness. I stood up slowly. Turned off the stove. The soup had started to boil. Didn't matter now. I walked into the guest room. The one I'd made up just in case she ever needed it. Sat down on the edge of the bed. Ran my fingers along the lace pillowcase. Everything inside me was pulsing, loud. But outside silence. The radio kept playing. Some old Ella Fitzgerald tune. Didn't feel like a song anymore. Felt like a mockery. I opened the bottom drawer of the hope chest. Lifted the brown paper-wrapped quilt I'd made. Still tied with lace. Still waiting. I traced the edge of it like I might be able to stitch myself back together. Then I saw it, tucked beneath the quilt. The rattle. Wrapped in faded tissue. Never opened. Still tied with the ribbon I placed on it in 1986. I hadn't remembered putting it in the hope chest. But there it was. Time folded in on itself. I saw my younger self standing in a hospital room, empty arms, no bassinet. Saw myself placing that little rattle in a drawer and telling no one. Not even my husband. Not even myself. And now it was back. Like memory had a way of surfacing when pain was ripe. I brought it to the window. Held it up to the light. Tiny golden bells inside. Never rung. I thought of the shower I was planning. The floral teacups. The little invitations I hadn't printed yet. Still saved on my desktop in a folder named Blessing Day. That's what I had called it. Because it wasn't just a shower. It was a blessing. One I had waited years to give. I walked over to the printer. Opened the file. Looked at the invite I had designed myself. Soft colors, baby's name in cursive. I hit delete. Just like that. And still I didn't cry. Didn't speak. Didn't curse or scream or pace. I sat. Back straight. Hands folded in my lap like I was waiting to be judged. Not by them. By something bigger. I thought about Emily again. The way she looked at her phone more than people. The way she rolled her eyes when I brought her a casserole. The way my son had smiled nervously when she joked. Your mom still uses paper checks? How cute. And I let it all come back. Like dust rising from a rug that's been beaten too long. Every moment I had excused. Every silence I had offered as peace. She had spoken her truth, hadn't she? Old ladies don't belong. And she'd meant it. Not in a hateful way. No, that would have been easier. She said it like it was a fact. Like gravity. Like weather. And that was what hurt most. I stood up. Put the rattle back in the hope chest. Closed it softly. Then walked to the sink. Poured out the soup. It was the first time I'd made too much. And still felt empty. I washed the pot. Dried it. Put it back on the shelf. The sky outside had gone even grayer. Rain started, slow, scattered, gentle. Like it didn't want to disturb me. And somewhere inside, something settled. Not peace. Not yet. But a pause. The kind that comes right before a sentence changes meaning. I made tea. Sat at the table. Let the steam fog up my glasses. I didn't need to be invited to her celebration. I had my own. And it wouldn't be for performance. Or appearance. It would be for memory. For healing. For the kind of love that doesn't fit in rooftop brunches and pastel photo ops. The rattle had never rung. But now. I think it finally had. Only I could hear it. And that was enough. It started slow. Quiet. Like a shift in the wind you don't notice until the leaves scatter. Emily began replying to my texts with just a thumbs up. Not a word. Just that small flat symbol. I had sent a picture of the baby blanket I was working on, soft yellow crocheted edges. Wrote, almost finished. Hope she likes it, yellow heart. All I got back was, thumbs up. I told myself she was tired. Pregnancy was hard. She didn't mean it that way. She once told me I made the best oatmeal cookies. So I baked a batch, wrapped them warm in wax paper, and left them on their porch with a ribbon. No message. No call. The next time I visited, they were still sitting there. Untouched. The ribbon damp from rain. The wax paper sagging. She must not have seen them. I told myself. Even though I knew she had a door camera. Even though I knew she got alerts every time someone came near. Still. I excused it. She came over for dinner once, early in the second trimester. Picked at her plate. Didn't touch the roast or the rolls. Said, I'm trying to eat cleaner now. You know, real nutrients. Then looked at her phone the whole meal. I offered her ginger tea. The one I used when I was carrying my son. She wrinkled her nose and said, smells like an antique shop in a cup. I laughed. Because that's what you do when someone chips away at you with a smile. You laugh and tell yourself it's not a wound. It's just a scratch. It'll heal. But they started piling up. The little scratches. The little jabs. Like when she posted her baby registry online and listed everything brand new. No handmade gifts, please. We're going minimalist, growing heart. Or when she shared maternity photos on Facebook, tagging every woman in her circle, her friends, her yoga instructor, her cousin's wife. Everyone but me. The caption read, so grateful for my tribe of strong women. I stared at it for a long time. Clicked it open, closed it. Opened it again. Strong women. I thought of my own mother. Raising 5 of us on her own after Daddy passed. Her hands raw from the soap factory, her back bent by 43. But she never complained. Just hummed while she worked. That was strength. I printed out the photo and tucked it behind my sewing machine. Not to keep, but to remember. Because sometimes, memory is sharper than truth. One night, I baked a small cake, lemon with blueberry filling. My son used to beg for it on his birthdays. I brought it over, hoping they'd be home. She opened the door and looked surprised. Not happy. Just surprised, like I'd broken an unspoken rule. Oh, you didn't have to come by. We're kinda just chilling today. I smiled. Held out the cake like peace. She didn't take it. Just stepped aside barely. Let me place it on the counter. Then said, we're trying to keep sugar out of the house, actually. Doctor said it could affect the baby's gut health. I nodded. Said, of course. Pretended I'd just leave it for guests. But when I came by a few days later, the cake was in the trash. Uneaten. Plastic wrap still sealed. That night, I stood in my kitchen staring at the sink. Didn't wash the pan I brought it in. Just let it sit there. I had flashbacks sometimes. Warm ones. Of her resting her head on my shoulder after their wedding. Of her borrowing my apron while we made Thanksgiving stuffing together. She once asked for my apple pie recipe. Said I reminded her of the grandma she never had. I used to believe we were building something. A bridge maybe. Somewhere between mothers and daughters. But bridges can look sturdy until they don't. Until you step out and find there's nothing holding you up anymore. One night I texted my son, just a simple message. Thinking of you. Hope she's feeling okay. No reply. 3 days later he sent back. Yeah, we're good. Been busy. No heart. No love you. Just facts. Like I was a stranger on the fringe of their orbit. Someone they nodded at politely but didn't wave to anymore. I made a casserole. Froze it. Labeled it for when she's too tired to cook. Never delivered it. It still sits in my freezer. Wrapped in aluminum. Hope frozen. The day I knew things had truly shifted. They had a small dinner party. I saw the pictures online. Tiny cake, a few friends, wine glasses, pink candles. A little banner that read, baby's first circle. Even my neighbor Joanne was there. But not me. I had called that morning. Just to say hello. He didn't answer. I watched the video twice. Emily was laughing, opening a onesie that said Mom's favorite human. I remembered the one I bought. Embroidered it by hand. Made with love by Grandma. Still wrapped. Still in my chest. The hurts weren't big. Not one of them loud. But they were there. One by one. Like feathers on a scale. Until one day, even breath felt heavy. She never told me to go away. She just stopped making space for me to stay. And somehow, that hurt more. It was a Tuesday. Quiet as always. Wind tapping the window, soft and steady. I had just finished folding laundry, tiny white onesies and burp cloths I'd bought months ago. Some still had the tags. Some I had washed just so they'd smell like home. I placed them gently into the drawer in the guest room. Still believing, somehow, that she'd come. That she'd need a place to rest. That maybe, love could still be useful. But the drawer stuck. It always stuck on the left side. My son used to yank it open as a boy, looking for old photo albums. His fingers always covered in peanut butter or paint. I never minded. I opened it slowly this time. Inside, buried under a stack of folded gowns, was a photo. 6 years old. Standing in the backyard with a cardboard crown and a juice box in hand. He had just told me, "Mommy, I'm the king of the world. But only if you're queen." I kept the crown in the attic. Still taped back together. I sat down on the edge of the bed, holding that photo. Stared at his little face. His gap-toothed grin. And then it hit me. It had been months since he called me that. Mom. Now it was just, hey. Or worse, silence. I placed the photo beside me. Hands in my lap. Back straight, like always. And then I did something I hadn't done in years. I cried. Not loudly. Not with sound. Just let it come. The way old houses settle in the night. Quiet. Unforgiving. Tears traced along the curve of my cheek. And I didn't wipe them. Didn't try to be strong. Didn't hide. The worst part wasn't the rejection. It was the remembering. Remembering how he used to climb into bed with me during storms. How he once saved his Halloween candy just to share with me. How I'd sat beside him when he was feverish, whispering lullabies no one else knew. And now I wasn't even considered. Not for a chair at a table. Not for a celebration of the life I helped bring into the world. I walked slowly to the kitchen. Opened the drawer where I kept the invitation I designed but never sent. Touched the edges. Felt the weight of it. Heavy for something so thin. I opened the linen closet. Reached for the soft quilt I had spent weeks stitching. And for the first time, I saw it differently. Not as a gift, but as a wound I kept feeding. Because love, when left unopened, starts to rot. I looked at the rattle. Still there. Still in its faded tissue paper. The one I bought in '86 when the ultrasound showed a strong heartbeat. The heartbeat that stopped just 2 weeks later. We buried her in silence. Didn't tell anyone. I went back to work the next Monday. Smiling. Like nothing inside me had cracked wide open. That rattle was the only thing I never threw away. I had meant to give it to Emily's baby. To pass it on. To rewrite the story. But not anymore. I sat on the floor with that rattle in my hand. Photo beside me. Quilt folded beside my feet like an offering I'd finally withdrawn. And I thought, this is what heartbreak looks like when it's quiet. No yelling. No slammed doors. No broken plates. Just a woman sitting in a room full of love. That no one wanted. Have you ever remembered something small? Just when everything felt like it was falling apart. I remembered the way he used to wait for me at the school gate. Backpack too big, arms wide. Running. Always running toward me. Now he walks away. Head down. Eyes full of someone else's future. That night, I made dinner. Only for one. Set the table with care. Folded the napkin. Lit the candle anyway. But when I sat down, I couldn't take a single bite. The house didn't feel quiet anymore. It felt hollow. Like the echo of something you used to believe in. Like the shell of a hymn no one sings. I stood up. Walked to the sewing room. Opened the drawer where I kept a box of old letters. Ones I never sent. Letters to my mother. To my unborn daughter. To my younger self. And one. Addressed simply. To the woman my son loves. I opened it. Read it. And burned it in the sink. Watched the paper curl. Blacken. Disappear. And with it, something inside me. Let go. I walked to the window. Looked out over the yard. The rose bush I planted in '86 was blooming again. Soft pink. Gentle. Unbothered. I leaned my forehead to the glass. Said her name. Just once. The one we never got to use. Then whispered, "You were always enough." And in that moment, so was I. I didn't tell anyone. Didn't slam a door. Didn't type a message. Didn't post a quote online and hope someone noticed. No. This was different. This wasn't rage. It was something colder. Something clearer. It was the silence that comes when you finally stop begging to be seen and start seeing yourself again. I began with the tea room. Called the owner. Kind woman, gray braid, always wore scarves. Told her I wouldn't need the reservation after all. Said someone else could have the date. She sounded surprised. Tried to ask why. I just said, "Plans changed." And that was that. Then the florist canceled the centerpieces I designed. Soft pinks, baby's breath, and eucalyptus. I had even asked them to tuck in tiny forget-me-nots. "Refund?" she asked. "No. Donate them to the hospice center," I said. "They could use something beautiful." I could hear her pause. That gentle kind of pause when someone knows there's more behind your voice than what you're saying. But she didn't ask. Next was the nursery mobile I had hand-stitched. The one with the soft white clouds, each sewn from scraps of my son's old baby clothes. I boxed it carefully. Drove it down to the shelter for young mothers. The woman behind the desk took it like it was gold. Eyes wide. Hands soft. "No one ever brings things like this," she whispered. I nodded. Didn't tell her it was meant for someone else. Didn't need to. Then came the rattle. The one from 1986. I didn't burn it. Didn't throw it away. Instead, I wrapped it one last time. This time in new paper, ivory with gold trim. Tied it with twine. Slipped a note beneath the ribbon. This was meant to hold a future that never came. Now it's just memory. And I'm done carrying it. I walked to their front porch just before dusk. No one was home. The curtains drawn. Lights off. I placed the box gently at the door. No knock. No ring. Walked back to my car. Closed the door behind me. Quietly. No slamming. Just the sound of something ending. Soft. Final. On the way home, I passed the field where they used to set up the spring fair. It was empty now. Just gravel and sky. I pulled over. Got out. Let the wind hit my face like truth. Let the silence stretch long and wide. I didn't cry. Not anymore. Tears had done all they could. I stood there, watching a single bird lift off from a wire. Alone. Unafraid. When I got home, I opened the drawer in the hallway where I kept old voicemails saved on CD. On top was one from my son. Years ago. His voice still high, still sweet. "Hi, Mom. Just wanted to say I love you. I miss you." I sat with it in my hand. Felt the weight of it. How something so small could ache so much. Then I slid it into the CD player. Hit eject. Placed it back in its case. Walked it to the fireplace. I didn't smash it. Didn't set it ablaze. Just placed it inside an envelope. Wrote archive across the front. Filed it in the cabinet under was. Not is. Not someday. Just was. I went to the mailbox. Opened it. My last name still printed neatly on the label. Mrs. Clara Fields. I peeled it off. Slow. Deliberate. Underneath just metal. Cold and bare. For now that felt right. I didn't slam the door. I just closed it. Finally. Later that evening, I sat in the chair by the window. Same place I used to rock him when he was small. Same creek. Same view. I made tea, not for anyone else. Just for me. Chamomile and honey. Steam rising like a prayer with no direction. The chair groaned as I settled back. But it held. It always held. In the silence, I thought. This is what power feels like. Not noise. Not punishment. Just withdrawal. Complete. Quiet. Whole. Have you ever stayed quiet just to keep the peace? And then one day realized. You were the peace all along? I used to think silence was weakness. Now I see it's the final word. And I had said mine. Without ever speaking. I thought the worst had passed. That I'd already endured the forgetting, the exclusions, the polite dismissal. But betrayal has layers. And some don't bleed right away. Some sit under your skin quiet until they rot. It was Irene who told me. My neighbor. She meant well. Stopped me by the hedges one morning. Arms full of begonias, apron still dusted with soil. She said it too casually, like a stray comment. Saw the listing online, such a cute little nursery set she's selling. Said it came from you. I paused, watering can tilted, dribbling over my shoes. Sorry. She blinked. Oh, maybe I got that wrong. I just assumed. Looked like your work. That quilt especially. The floral one with the cream border. I didn't answer. Just nodded. Smiled. The kind of smile that covers a slow shattering. Later, I pulled it up on my tablet. The listing was still live. Lightly used baby items. All handmade vintage style. Underneath. Never used, just not our style. There it was. The quilt. My quilt. The squares stitched from memory. My wedding handkerchief. My son's old pajama cotton. The yellow square from the hospital gown I wore when I gave birth to him. Photographed under a harsh light. Folded neatly beside the mobile I had sewn. The same clouds made from his baby clothes. Under the mobile. Great for neutral nurseries. Comes with vintage story if you're into that. Vintage story. If you're into that. Like memory was a trend. Like grief was an accessory. I sat there for a long time. Scrolling. Reading the comments. People bidding, complimenting. So charming. What a sweet, nostalgic aesthetic. They didn't know. Couldn't. That it wasn't just fabric and thread. It was pieces of me. Of my history. Of everything I had stored in silence. And she sold it. Didn't even give it away. Didn't offer it to someone who might feel the weight of its meaning. She priced it. Packaged it. Photographed it like it was decor. Like I was decor. That same night, I went up to the attic. Where I keep the oldest boxes. Photos with curled edges, music boxes missing keys, drawings in crayon with mommy spelled backwards. I opened the cedar chest at the back. Hadn't touched it in years. Inside was the envelope. Still sealed. A legal-sized document from 3 years ago. I had forgotten about it. Not on purpose. Maybe just needed to. It was a copy of my will. One I had revised after their wedding. Back when Emily hugged me and said, "You'll always be part of our family." I mean it. I had changed the language to include her. Left the house in both their names. Gave her the jewelry that belonged to my mother. The locket, the brooch, the rose gold ring she once admired. I sat on the floor of the attic, paper trembling in my hands. She hadn't just dismissed me. She had profited from me. Turned the remnants of my love into side income. I wasn't just forgotten. I was rewritten. They didn't just forget me. I whispered aloud. They erased me. That night I couldn't sleep. Every corner of the house felt foreign. Like someone had come in and rearranged the air. I wandered from room to room. Past old photographs, worn furniture, the chipped edge of the dining table where he once banged his toy truck. I ran my fingers along the chair rail. Tried to anchor myself. Eventually, I found myself in the sewing room. Sat down at the desk. In the top drawer was a letter. Folded, yellowed. It was the one I wrote to my unborn daughter. The baby we lost. I had forgotten I even kept it. If you'd lived, I would have called you Lily. You would have had your father's smile and your brother's laugh. I would have held you every night until you stopped crying. And even after. I folded the letter again. Placed it in my lap. Beside it, I noticed something I hadn't before. A small card. Tucked beneath fabric scraps. A thank you card. From Emily. From years ago. Shortly after the engagement. Clara, I truly don't know what I did to deserve someone like you. You've made me feel safe in a world that's never felt like home. Thank you for loving me before you had to. I stared at it. My name. Her handwriting. So sincere then. And yet somewhere along the way, the warmth curdled into indifference. Then contempt. Then cruelty dressed in calm. I pressed the card to my chest. Not to remember, but to mourn. Then I placed it inside the envelope with the will. Sealed them both. And wrote across the front. To be rewritten. Because I would not allow erasure to be the final story. Not of me. Not of what I built. Not of what I gave. They took my love and made it inconvenient. They took my memory and sold it as vintage. But I still had something left. A choice. A voice. And the one thing they underestimated. Time. Time to reclaim. Time to remove. Time to decide what legacy survives me. And who doesn't. I didn't rewrite the will right away. First, I let the days pass. Let the air settle back inside the house. Let the silence grow roots again. Not because it was lonely, but because I'd finally stopped watering the wrong things. And then, I chose. It began with a letter. I wrote it by hand, ink thick from an old fountain pen, to a woman named Teresa. She was the director of the shelter where I had dropped off the quilt and the mobile. I asked if I could return, not to donate, but to help. She wrote back the next day. Come whenever you like. We have young women who could use someone who listens. I went that Friday, wore my Sunday cardigan and brought lemon muffins. There were 6 girls in the common room, 2 of them pregnant, one cradling a baby that couldn't have been more than a week old. No one asked me who I was. They just scooted over and made space on the couch. So I sat. And I listened. One girl, Alicia, told me her mother stopped speaking to her when she got pregnant. Another, barely 18, said her grandmother passed away before she could teach her how to swaddle. I took a deep breath and offered. I used to sing to mine, even when they were too old for lullabies. They laughed. That soft, tired kind of laugh. But they leaned in. And I did too. The next week I brought yarn. We crocheted small hats for winter babies. Hands busy, hearts a little lighter. I started going every week. Made small kits for each girl. Tea bags, cozy socks, handwritten notes that began with, "To the mother you're becoming." I found pieces of myself there. Not in pity, but in purpose. One day, Alicia asked if she could name her daughter Lily. Said the name felt soft when she said it out loud. I nodded. Didn't tell her why the name brought tears to my eyes. Just said, it's a good name. Strong. Gentle. I went home that day and opened the envelope marked to be rewritten. I took out the will, the thank you card, the folded letter to my daughter, who never came. Then I reached for a pen. I removed their names. My son. His wife. The ones who erased me. Not out of anger. Out of clarity. You can only offer your inheritance to people who understand its value. And they had made it clear. I wrote a new version. The house would go to the shelter. Furniture, art, everything. My books to the library. My quilts to the maternity ward. My jewelry to women who needed reminders of their worth. And that locket, the one my mother gave me, I kept it out. For now. I wore it again for the first time in years. It hung just above my heart, resting there like it never left. One morning, I walked to the garden. The rose bush I planted in '86 had bloomed again. Soft pink, despite the cold snap. I clipped a few and brought them inside. Placed them in a vase by the sewing machine. That room used to feel heavy. Now it felt like breathing. I pulled out my fabric, cut long strips, and started a new quilt. This one wasn't for a specific child. It was for all of them. I stitched words into the corners. Safe. Warm. Chosen. Heard. Each one sewn with steadier hands. Hands no longer trying to earn their place. That weekend, I hosted my own shower. But not the kind they'd expect. I called it a blessing circle. Made invitations by hand. Sent them to the shelter girls, to Irene next door, to the librarian who always saved me the large print books. We gathered under the oak tree in my backyard. Simple folding chairs. String lights. Warm cider. Homemade apple tarts. Alicia brought Lily, wrapped in a blanket I'd made just the week before. She placed the baby in my arms like it was the most natural thing in the world. And I didn't cry. Not because I wasn't moved, but because peace doesn't always need tears. It settles in the chest. Expands gently. Stays. I looked around that circle. Women of all ages, colors, stories. Some broken, some healing. All whole in their own way. I raised my glass and said, to the daughters we lost. To the mothers we became. To the family we choose. There was no bitterness. Only warmth. And quiet triumph. Later, as the sun dipped low, I slipped the locket from my neck. pressed it into Alicia's hand. She looked at me wide-eyed. I can't. You can, I said. I wore it when I thought no one saw me. Now it belongs to someone ready to be seen. She held it close. And for a moment, the past didn't feel like something to grieve. It felt like something that finally bloomed. Would you have walked away? Or taken everything back? I walked away. But not empty. I carried something far better. A name I gave myself. A life I chose again. And peace that didn't ask for permission. It was a Tuesday again. Like so many other days. Sunlight cutting through the curtains just right. And the kitchen smelled faintly of cinnamon and clean wood. I had just returned from the shelter. Lily had taken her first steps that morning. Wobbly and brave. Arms out like little wings. Alicia cried. I did too. But quietly. The way women cry when they've carried too much joy and grief in the same basket. I was putting away dishes when I heard it. The crunch of tires on gravel. Slow. Hesitant. I looked out the window. Saw his car. Silver. Still dented on the back passenger door. He never fixed that. Always said it gave the car character. He sat there a long time before stepping out. Hands in his pockets. Like a boy again. Like the son I remembered. He walked up the steps. Didn't knock right away. Just stood there, staring at the door. Then, 2 soft taps. I opened it. Didn't smile. Didn't frown. Just let the quiet sit between us. Hi, Mom, he said. Voice lower now. Not sure of its place. Hello, I said. Calm. Even. He held something in his hands, wrapped in tissue, crushed at the edges. Emily thought maybe you'd still want this. He opened it. The rattle. The one I left on their porch. Still wrapped in the ivory paper I chose. The twine carefully tied. Unopened. Untouched. He placed it on the table, like he was returning something sacred. But it wasn't sacred anymore. Not like that. I see, I said. Not bitter. Not cruel. Just tired of pretending it meant what it once did. He looked around the room. Noticed the changes. The absence. Your quilt. It wasn't in the nursery. I know. She shouldn't have sold it. His voice cracked. I didn't know until after. I would have stopped it. I nodded. But that kind of knowing comes too late. It always does. He sat down. Asked if I had tea. I made him a cup. Poured it without ceremony. No sugar. No lemon. We sat. In silence. Then carefully he spoke. She says she didn't mean it. That you misunderstood. That she was trying to make things modern, not cold. She said old ladies didn't belong at baby showers, I answered. Plain. Simple. No room for twisting. He flinched. Like hearing it aloud made it real. I should have said something. You didn't. I was scared, he admitted. Didn't want to upset her. Things were tense. I thought you'd understand. I looked at him. And for a moment, I saw the boy with the juice box again. The one who called me queen. But that boy had long since left. And the man in front of me had stood silent while I was erased. I did understand, I said. I understood exactly where I stood. His eyes filled. But I didn't reach across the table. Didn't fold him in my arms. Some distances aren't bridged with apologies. She still wants you in the baby's life, he said. She's sorry. Truly. I shook my head gently. I gave her my love. My time. My history. She called it clutter. He looked down. Traced the rim of his cup. I miss you, he whispered. I don't think you know what that means anymore. Silence again. Heavy, but not cruel. Just true. Then I stood. Walked to the drawer. Opened it. Pulled out a photo. Lily. Laughing in the garden. Wrapped in a quilt I had just finished. I placed it in front of him. She calls me Gran. He stared at the picture. Said nothing. But I saw it. The shift. The reckoning. Not jealousy. Not even grief. Just the realization. That someone else had stepped into the space he'd abandoned. And she hadn't just filled it. She had grown in it.